Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast.
Parents were married for 48 years and got divorced. You think I'm gonna take 28 years for granted? And not know how I need to be pleased and know how to please that man? Yeah. Girl.
Let me tell you, and that is so true. It's so true. And it's a way that partners, you connect with your significant other in that way. And it brings you even closer together. When sex is good, it's only 10% in the relationship. When it is bad, it is 90%.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our SistaNistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite SistaNistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Hello, everybody. I'm TracyMac, the professional peacemaker, your self-discovery companion, and host of Black Women's World Podcast. I can't even keep myself together. I'm supposed to say the BWWP baby, but I'm itching to talk to this lady right here. Trice Hickman. Trice, say hello to the people before I tell them how brilliant you are.
Oh, thank you. Hello, SisterNistas, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you, Tracy.
Yes, baby. Y'all, welcome to Blindsided with Trice and Tracy. That's got a little ring to it, but that's the name of this episode, Blindsided, because Trice has a new book called Blindsided. I want to talk to you about you. Girl, I can't get myself together. In introductory form, as I should do formally, but I just have to be myself. Trice Hickman is a renowned urban fiction author. She is brilliant. Her creative writing, it just draws you in. Her many books, the 9 prior, because Blindsided is number 10, have just, Trice and I are friends, but I don't even know if I want to talk about that because I have to. We go back since high school. Tell them, Trice.
That's right. High school and then roommates our freshman year at Winston-Salem State University.
Yes. Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. To all of my SistaNista lovers all over the world, let me tell you, Trice is probably the longest friend and should I say since high school that I still connect with on a consistent basis to now. And you have been amazing. When I see your books on the shelves in the store, I told you I get grandma proud. But Trice, I want to be. I want to tell the people about you, but I don't want you just sit there looking. I want you to. I don't know. This excitement got me all. I know how to interview people, but this is just,
Yeah, this is different. This is us.
How are you? Let me start with that. How are you doing?
Thank you for asking me that, Tracy, because, a lot of times people don't ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And, it depends on what day you ask me. Because it's been such a difficult time over the past 2 years, not just because of COVID, but I have lost family members. I lost my father, I lost my brother.
Yeah.
And so then with the pandemic, it's just been really tough. But overall, I have to say, even with my good days, bad days, I'm blessed because I'm here. I'm blessed because I have people around me who love and support me. And that has been intentional because I've had to let some people go.
Yeah.
Love them from a distance to protect my health. So I have to say I'm in a good place right now, but you know, one day to the next, I just take it as it comes and just be great. I'm trying to be grateful for everything.
Yes. And thank you for telling me, and thank you for sharing with us and being transparent, because I think sometimes we expect, when we ask someone how they're doing, we want them to say they're fine. Sometimes we don't stand around to hear anything else. And it does depend on the day. I know with me sometimes, Trice, it depends on the moment. And it's not because I'm, out of my mind. It's just because that's how real moment things change from moment to moment. And we spoke briefly prior to even recording about how we suffer from different things, and sharing with people about what those things are can bring a sense of normalcy. Like, okay, I'm really not that off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because those moments change, and life can do, as you've titled this book so masterfully, you can get blindsided. And maybe in not the same ways of the wonderful characters in this book. I mean, girl, you just right. I mean, Bernadette, Tess, Arizona, and their lives, and just you talk about the real world lives that some people go through, and you bring them to such life. It's almost tangible, it's palpable in these characters. How do you do that?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that, Tracy, because one of the things that I always want to do, I think any writer, they want their audience to be able to connect with the subject matter that they're writing on, whether it's a memoir, whether it's not, a fiction story. So for me, that's very important. And I think about that when I'm writing, but in particular with these characters in this book, it's the sequel to my book, The Other Side.
Yes.
Which is in the Complicated Love series. It's the first book in the Complicated Love series. I came about these characters very organically, and it was not the book that I had intentionally, set out to write.
Okay.
I was working on a totally different storyline, and I kind of got stuck. The story was moving very slow, and this was several years ago. And so the manuscript was due into my editor in a couple of weeks. And I had a trip scheduled with Todd to Vegas. And at the time, Todd and I were just dating.
Okay.
And so I said, gosh, I called my literary agent and I said, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to go on this trip. I think I might need to cancel it and, try to get this book written. And she said, no, don't do that, Trice. Go on that trip to Vegas, get out of your everyday space and your comfort zone, and it may open you up to something new. And you'll be able to write fluidly. So I said, you know what, that's a good idea. I'll do it. So we went to Vegas, and the first night there, Todd proposed to me. And so I went to Vegas.
Ho. That's one of those things. What goes on in Vegas, don't stay in Vegas.
God is good.
Yes.
Because, I went to Vegas a little stressed and knowing I had this deadline and all of these different things that were so important to me at that time. Once Todd proposed to me and I knew, you know what, I'm going to be his wife, my perspective changed like overnight. And it made me think about being at a crossroads in your life and what that means to be in your, going about your everyday life and then coming to a crossroads and making decisions. And I thought about my life in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and I came up with this idea to write about women who were at a pivotal point in their lives, having to make decisions, tough decisions too, and trying to get to the other side of that and what that looks like. And I just thought in my mind about these characters and they're all three women are born on the same day. They're just a decade apart, 10 years apart. So one is 30, one is 40, one is 50. And they have these different experiences that they bring, and they help each other as sisters through everything. And I've just been blessed, with you included, to have some really great sister friends. And when I say some great sister friends, it doesn't mean you have to talk every single day. You may not talk but once a year.
Yes.
But when you do, that love is there. That care is there. That concern is there. Like you just asked me, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
someone who cares about you. They want to know how you're doing. And so I wanted to infuse that as well into the book. And so, you know, I had come to a crossroads in my life when I decided to leave a marriage that I had been in for a very long time and choose happiness for myself. And that was very scary thing to do, because I packed what I could in my car and I drove to North Carolina and started from scratch.
Yeah.
And, you know, having faith and love and support, I couldn't have dreamed, even though I prayed for these things, I could not have dreamed back then that my life would be what it is right now. It was filled with so much. I'm going to get full, but we'll come back to that.
Look, I'm sitting here smiling like a chess cat, because I love how your life has evolved, and you took that risk. I remember we talked in the midst of those situations transforming, and we both were in some strange places. And I was jumping into entrepreneur. This was 2012, 13-ish.
Yes.
And I was jumping into entrepreneurship and book and dealing with different illnesses. And we talked on the phone for, I think, 3 hours. And it's those sister friend conversations. Like I said, we don't have to talk every day, but when we do, the level of transparency, it feels therapeutic. And so many things. And so you see these in the characters, you know, two of them being related, but, you know, the bond that they have. And in the book, The Other Side, and you do have to read The Other Side in order to flow into these lives. I mean, if you get started on Blindsided, it'll make you want to read all other 9. But The Other Side, you know, gives you the segue into Blindsided. And when you talked about asking people how they're doing, these characters live in knowing the ins and outs of one another's lives, some being closer to the others, some telling one, you know, none of us tell one person everything, but we'll tell people bits and pieces. And if you put them together, they might know everything. So even, I love the way, Trice, even how you lay out timelines. You'll talk about a character up until a certain point, and then you'll go back 2 chapters later to fill us in on why that happened in the previous. And I love that. But the real world lives you give these characters, there's infertility in this book, erectile dysfunction, parental issues, you know, issues with parenting, you know, how your parent treats you, moving from one place to another, and murder. You know, it's so much of real life. And sometimes I allow myself to get lost in the fiction, but then come out of it with lessons for the nonfiction life I live, you know. And I'm a self-help author, but there's so many lessons in fiction books that you can take. And how do you do that deliberately, Trice?
You know, yes and no. I always want my stories to, as I said before, connect with readers, and I want someone to get something out of it that's going to help them, right? Because
it's working, baby. It's working, baby.
Because, you know, everyone's experience is different, and so 2 people can read the same book and come away with different experiences from that book, or different understanding from the person beside them who read the book based on what they've gone through. It's so subjective. And so that's what whatever that lesson has to be for that person, because it's different for different people.
Right.
But I do want, just like my characters, when I write a character, I want that character to grow. So that character, when you meet them at the beginning of the book, has gone through some kind of transformation by the time that book is finished. And isn't that life? I mean,
yes.
Or at least that should be the way we go about our lives.
Yeah,
there's got to be some kind of evolution.
Yeah, deliberate. I think life is going to make it happen. But I think even the characters and even our lives, when you and I discuss our personal lives, some things that, like you just said about taking risks, some of these changes and transformations and transitions we make, you have to make them deliberate. You have to make a choice. I am going to move. I am physically, geographically, emotionally, mentally, financially. You have to make concerted efforts, and you have to make a deliberate choice and be intentional. And,
yes,
Trice, what I appreciate about your life that I've seen as an author in the ails of authorship, is you've been an author back in the day when it was only paperback or hardcover. You've been an author when you had to either go to the bookstore and get the book or order it from Books A Million or Barnes and Noble. You have seen this literary world just shift. And I came in on the very tail end of that when ebooks were, and from my experience, were beginning to merge and create space, and all these other things came about. How has that changed? Does that change because of even the readership? Do you have to change how you write and who you write to based on how people acquire books nowadays?
That's a great question.
Come back into your mic.
I've never been asked that question.
Okay, there you haven't?
No.
Well, here you go.
I've never been asked that question. That is a great question. But I would have to say I have not changed the way or what I write based on technology. I have changed the way I write in that I write more efficiently now.
Okay.
What I used to do was write everything out by hand, and then go back on the computer, and that. And I guess because of repetitive and carpal tunnel, I just can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I do everything on my laptop, and even when it used to be back in the day when you got your edits, your copy edits from your editor, they would send them the manuscript. It would come mailed to you. Now you get your blue line copy electronically.
Yes.
But I'll tell you this, I still edit though, and I still read for continuity and clarity a printed copy. So when I get that electronic copy, I print it out because there's something that reads different, at least for me. If I'm reading something on an e-reader or on my phone, it reads a certain way, but if it's printed out, it reads differently. So
Yes. Because even, I have to feel the pages. I want to touch the pages. And I was telling you have to get Blindsided. Blindsided by author Trice Hickman, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers. It is available everywhere books are sold. Everywhere books are sold. But it's something about touching those pages. I was sharing with Trice before we started talking. As in general, a lot of people don't read or don't choose to read. But let me tell you, and most men don't read these type of books, urban fiction. But some do. I don't want to be stereotypical. But I was reading my copy, and just sitting and enjoying it. And I was telling my husband Owen about certain parts, and I started telling him so much. I said, you know what? Let me just go to Audible and download the book. It's available on audible.com. And we have been listening to the book together, laughing, pausing it to discuss something, because the texture you put on the lives of the characters, it's like, it's better than reality TV because you get to envision what the character looks like, even though you do a great job of describing how they are, whatever. But we're discussing amongst ourselves, whether we agree or disagree with how they responded. And that can even spark, because something else that you mentioned, the book clubs, that's another way. And see how you say you write because people see things differently. Owen and I, the same book I was reading in print and touching the pages, to have a conversation with him who don't want to read urban fiction, but love talking about it, so right. that in and of itself, I appreciate those options that we have. But I'm like you, baby, and I still start things out handwritten. I start out handwritten because it's like a flow. I don't know if it's from my mind through my fingers and my hand, but I choose because of I don't have a UCL on my left hand, and I'm left-handed. I'm ambidextrous, but that's a whole nother story. I can't write as long as I used to, and I miss it. I really miss longhand. But what are some? Go ahead, please.
Oh, now if I have like an idea that comes to me or something in the storyline, I will write it out. And if I'm not by my computer, or I'll jot down like different notes, because with each book, I'll have a notebook that I record some of the characters in and just different nuances, because that's what I do when I create a character. I do a biography for them so that I know that character inside and out, and I can write the story in their voice and not my own, not impart what I would do. Because that character then becomes a whole real person. Yeah. So in those instances, I will write by hand.
Yes, and I love it. I mean, weight loss is even in this book, and so many things we deal with in life. And I kind of want to shift, because even though we're talking about this wonderful book, Blindsided, by my friend and author, Trice Hickman, I want to talk about sometimes in real life, maybe, Trice, how we've been blindsided to the degree we choose to be as transparent as we choose to be. We talked earlier about, take for instance, I deal with brain fog. And a lot of times it happens in menopause, because you have characters in Blindsided who, are in their 50s. But that's one way. But I suffered from many strokes between 2007 and 2008. So that started a level of brain fog. Okay, then 2020, it's speculated that I had COVID, even though at the time it wasn't diagnosed. They just kept sending me home, couldn't figure out bronchitis, sinus infection, whatever. They were throwing everything at it. And so I don't know if I had it or not, but after then, it seemed like my brain fog got a little worse. And then, when you know it, the M word, menopause. So
it's the devil.
Yes, it is the devil. I'm sitting up here now doing this because I'm having a hot flash.
Look, don't even speak it, because where's my fan? Don't even. I had it just the other. Oh, it fell. Look, hold on.
I am having a hot flash as we speak.
Look, I'm out of screen right now, but I got to show you this. Okay. So I have a fan, a mini fan. The struggle is real.
And the thing of it is, just total transparency, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers. Normally when I do the podcast, I have on my SistaNista sweatshirt. But prior to interviewing my lovely, wonderful friend Trice, I had to be on panel. And it was holiday oriented. And so I wanted to be holiday-ish. And so I would not normally be in this sweater. And so I'm sitting here concentrating on what we're talking about, and all this little glistening popping to me. These things are happening to me.
Well, the first hot flash I had, I didn't realize that it was a hot flash, because I'm cold natured. I usually am always cold. So we were sitting in church and I started feeling hot. And I looked at Todd and I said, "Are you hot?" He looked at me, he said, "No." And it's usually freezing inside our church. It's usually very cold in there. I said, "Boy, it's getting hot in here." And I just kept getting hotter and hotter, to the point where I took the church program and I was fanning like this. and everybody around me, nobody else was fanning. And I looked and Todd was so alarmed because he didn't know what was happening. And then I thought, oh Lord. And there was an older lady who was in church, and I caught a glimpse of her, and she looked at me like, bless her heart. And that was my first hot flash, and I didn't realize it. But from that point forward, oh my gosh, it has just been, and you're right. The things that you hear about menopause, you always hear about the hot flash, right? And I didn't really appreciate how intense it was until I had one. But there are other things that come along with it that can completely disrupt your life, like we were just talking about with brain fog. I have been struggling doing interviews and podcasts and book club meetings because there are times when I know what I want to say.
Yes.
It's like cup. I know it's a cup.
Yes.
It's just a 3-letter word, but I can't but I can't think to say cup, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And it is very unsettling and disturbing. I remember years ago when I had gotten into a car accident, I had a concussion and I had brain swelling. And I remember when I went to physical therapy and I went to my doctor, he told me that because of the concussion and the type of concussion it was, that I was going to have maybe some cognitive delay, difficulties for a couple of months. Well, this is what it feels like. It feels like I'm in a continual concussion.
Yes.
So ladies,
yes, and because it affects everything. You know, I've struggled with pernicious anemia and have to get iron infusions, so I stay cold. Fingertips, nose, toes, everything usually stays cold on me. So can you imagine? And I'm not trying to be funny, but can you imagine how? And I'm not, and I'm very sensitive to the word bipolar, but the physical bipolar feeling you have when you're dealing with anemia and a hot flash at the same time. It's like,
I can't even imagine.
Everything
I
is
just send up a prayer.
Yeah, how are my fingertips, my nose, and my toes cold, but everything else is wet. And so it's like, but that, like you said, that's just one. But the brain fog has even changed my profession. I'm not grateful for the negative things that have happened during the pandemic, Trice, but for the sake of not having to travel to teach and speak and do coaching things, because I literally, like you, am in the middle of speaking, and I do very well speaking to crowds, and I know my material. I know it like the back of my brown hand. But when you get up there, and due to whether it be the stroke delay, the possibly COVID mental issues, and then menopause, brain fog, sometimes I know it. I know the slides backwards and forwards. I built them. I'm created the curriculum, and it's just not there. So it's like now, thank God, because of Zoom and other things, WebEx and Teams and Google Meet, I'm able to do things, and I'm having it right now. It makes it much less scary because, first of all, I tell the audience, and the beauty of it is, which is why I don't regret it and I'm grateful for it, is because it has made me be way less filtered. Sorry for other people, but it works for me.
You know what? And that's very real. You have to do what works for you, and it helps you to survive.
Yes.
Yes. It helps you to thrive. It helps you to go on. And I think we're all just in the midst right now of trying to find what's going to work for us.
Yes.
Yes. Because so many things have happened in the last 2 years. People have lost loved ones. People who have had COVID, like they suspect you had, it may be lingering effects of it. So we're all dealing with, so many different things, and you have to find what is going to help you cope, what is going to help you deal. And I think when you're walking in truth, and owning that truth, like, you know, for me, it was hard for me to open up about what I had been through in my first marriage.
Yeah.
And I kept it all inside. Like, even my mother didn't know some of the things
With her
that
sweet self.
Oh, she is. I just love my mama. Hey, Mom, because I know she's going to be watching this when it comes out.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't even tell her some of the things because of shame, because of, you know, I felt like I should not accept certain things, yet I was accepting them, you know. But once I decided that, you know what, this is my life, I have to live, and I've got to live it in a way that is going to be fulfilling to me, even though it was scary to make those hard choices. I made them, and I lived through them, and I thrived. And so, you know, I can tell anyone now who is listening or watching, if you're struggling with something and you are afraid, face that truth. Because it's always, you know, the thought of something is scarier than the actual action of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, and I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we give fear our imagination. And I learned that even when you and I talked in 2012, that was one of the first lines, or should I say in the first chapter of my book, that I had to stop giving fear my imagination. Fear was coming, but I was giving fear so much more than what it had. It didn't have, I was giving it all the equipment. What about this? What about this? What about, and fear just came with one thing and I gave it 10. And so when you talk about the challenges and the things that we go through, you know, even the characters in the book number 10, Blindsided. Being blindsided can really be eye-opening if you let it. And we get blindsided by a lot of different things. The world was blindsided by COVID. you know, we can get blindsided by divorce, blindsided, the holidays, the triggers that happen this time of year. You know, Trice, what are some things that may have blindsided you, and that in turn, by the grace of God, became rather eye-opening for your benefit and worked out for your good?
You know what? I'll go back to the very beginning of my career. Because I had suffered from writer's block for nearly 20 years before I wrote my first book. So, you know, it was something that I had wanted to do for such a long time, but because I couldn't do it, and that's what built up the anxiety and made the writer's block even worse. So when I was finally able to write the book, I thought, this is a masterpiece, as every new author does, you know. And so I had in my mind that once I wrote this book, I was going to send the manuscript out to an agent and get an agent to represent me. And then the agent would, you know, sell my manuscript to a publisher, and I'd get this huge book deal, and I'd be on the New York Times bestselling list, right?
Yes.
Big wrong. So when I sent that manuscript out that I thought was a very strong story, I got rejection letter after rejection. I was blindsided by that because I had not anticipated that. Because truly, in my mind, I thought this book is good. It's gonna sell. But I had rejection letters. Some were form letters that just said, you know, we're not interested, we're gonna pass. Others were, this story is not, audiences will not relate to it. It is not going to sell, those kinds of things. So every agent, editor, publisher I submitted my work to, they passed on it. And so what I had to do is kind of like the book's predecessor, The Other Side, is get to the other side of that and figure out, okay, I know God didn't bring me this far just to let this story go.
That's right.
So how do I recover from this? Because that's what life is about. It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you recover from it.
Absolutely.
So I quickly said, I believe in this story. I never stopped believing in it. I never stopped believing in myself as an author, even though I was blindsided by all that rejection, after so many.
I'm having a moment, and I don't mean a hot flash. You can keep talking. I just had blindsided by rejection.
Yeah.
Wow. Keep talking. Yeah. Keep talking.
Yeah. So it was devastating to me for a minute, but I quickly had to reassess and say, okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do now? And so I spent the next probably 2.5 years in a job that I didn't want to be on. But that job allowed me to save up enough money,
okay,
so that I could quit it.
Okay.
And
quitting was the intention.
Yeah, I mean, I was making, a good salary. So I was able to save up my money,
okay,
plan, do my research on the book industry. And I said, okay, I'm going to put everything I can into this book. And I believe that's how strongly I believed in not just what I had written, but in myself as a writer. I really did. I believed. And I have faith. When you have faith, it can move mountains, and that is the truth.
When you know that you know that you know.
There you go.
You know, when you may not even have all the answers, but you know that thing, or like one of my book colleagues call it a book baby, or whatever that vision is. When you know that you know down on the inside, can't nobody tell you nothing different. And the blindsided by rejection, my mind went back, and it's really nostalgic for me, to both of us growing up in small town America, military community, Havelock, North Carolina. And I'm gonna talk about me, and you can say if it's you too. Preacher's kid. My dad was bishop in the church, small town. A little bit of a misfit. 2 siblings. Sweet mamas. Hey, Mom.
Your mom is so sweet. And
likewise, she is.
So she can be.
She is, and yours too. And I'm thinking the times, and it may not have been, and this is not one of those, people didn't like me things. This is just a reality. It may have been how I took it. I was not popular in high school. I don't know, but I was, a little mousy. I wasn't, like I said, popular or anything. And even going through life, I just kind of, kept to myself. And I took it as rejection, even if people didn't mean it that way. But glory be to God, when I go back and think about the goodness of Jesus, and I sit here and look at you, I have to say, look at you, and I see the beautiful woman you have become, the wonderful life you have with your husband, Todd, and your children. And I'm thinking about how blindsided by rejection had a way of preserving, because God knows, Trice, we look damn good for 2 almost 53-year-old women, for one.
Stay tuned for more of the BWWP. Blindsided is the edgy, sexy, page-turning follow-up to award-winning, best-selling author Trice Hickman's The Other Side. 3 friends who've shared everything, including the same birthday, bond over the triumphs, trials, and unexpected complications surrounding the men they love. Blindsided, a novel available online and nationwide wherever books are sold. Order your copy of Blindsided today. You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast. Let's continue the conversation.
Say it. I feel blessed. I do. I feel blessed.
But sometimes that rejection was preservation for the better, and I'm so many things are just ticking, but it's like, can any good thing come out of Havelock?
We did. We did.
And got no shout out to all my wonderful Havelock, Harlow, Hickman Hill, James City, everybody up and down Highway 70 and
That's right.
Highway 101. Love you guys, because it was a family, because I didn't have any blood relatives there except for my immediate family. But just thinking about the times where people may not have meant it that way, but I took it that way. But also thinking about the times that in coaching, in authorship, and growing a small business, and being a Black woman. Do you know how many times I've been rejected and then turn around and had a white male colleague submit the same proposal, the exact wording, and get the contract, get the client? The rejection, and yet at the same time, I know that I know that I know that I know that vision and that thing on the inside, that if these other things came to blindside me, all things have worked together. Trice, you just set all of that off in me. Your turn.
But you're exactly right. And I think, I don't know any Black woman, especially a Black woman our age, who has not been in a situation where not just we have to deal with the gender discrimination, but the racial discrimination as well, and having to prove yourself over and over again, and having to face rejection, but act as though you've never been knocked down.
Yeah.
That creates a lot of stress as well. It creates a lot of, and we have to face that and own it and then let it go. Because
yes.
And when I said let it go, not just pretend that it didn't happen, but go beyond it to what is next, to what is meant for us to have and to be.
Yes, because of the resilience that we have to have. We both mentioned our sweet mothers. They handled life a lot differently than we do, but just their sweetness was a level of it was kind of a resilience as well. And I thought about, I was telling a group of kids, they were talking about superheroes, and I'm not that into Marvels, but I'm aware of, the Legion of Doom and, just aware, but, I don't even know the names of everybody, but they were talking about Superman. And so I had to try to integrate, with these youth, you got to try to stay on their level and integrate conversation. And we're talking to I was talking to young Black women. And I said, you don't have to have an S on your chest. When you have survived this life, you have the Black skin on your face. That is a superpower in and of itself.
It really
to have to survive. And I'm thinking of, we just talked to Lucy Matswaga a couple episodes ago about the relationship between Black American women and African. Oh, and by the way, I noticed the colors on this book were very Black. That intentional? Was that intentional?
You know what? Actually, no, it wasn't. And it was a surprise to me. And I'll tell you why. Because it's a beautiful cover.
Yes.
I love this cover. It wasn't intentional, but that saying that everything works out the way it's supposed to, it's divine order.
I gotta hold it back up for those who are watching. Those of you who are listening, you have to buy the book so you can see your own cover. But look at that beautiful #1 Black woman. So that's a SistaNista. The red earring, to me, I was seeing power, then a little hint of green down here, and the black. I said, Trice is a freaking genius.
And look at the headscarf. Look at the headscarf.
Yes, it's almost kente. It's almost the kente pattern is in there, but then it's a plaid. And I'll be too deep with it. And I was like, that's a mixture of a Black woman, an African woman, and an African American woman. Look at that. And you telling me you ain't even do it on purpose?
No, because let me.
Okay.
Let me tell you the story, and everybody, the story behind this book. So all of my covers have featured models, right? have featured like People, like
Yeah.
The Other Side, the book's predecessor. So before each book, my editor and the marketing department, they'll ask me to send them my book cover ideas and what I see based upon, for the cover, based upon, the characters I've written.
Yeah.
And so when they asked me for my book ideas, I was going with the same theme that I, had with the models. And they came back with this in the art department. And so it was shocking to me at first. And I thought, well, I've never had a book with a graphic. It's always been people. And so sometimes you have to get beyond what you're used to, And
I love it because to me, it's every woman.
Yes.
It's not a type. It's not a complexion. It's not a particular hairstyle. I see me. I see you. I see my daughter. I can see every woman in this cover. And then when you get into the contents of the book, we can all relate. I love whoever the artist is. Kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Yes. I mean, and it got to the point where I started loving it so much. I said, well, look, can we do this with her headscarf? Can we turn it around?
See?
So, and the characters, like you said, within the book, I think that everyone, whether you're a woman or a man, really can relate to being at a point in your life where you have to make pivotal decisions. You have to make decisions that can be hard, and facing your truth can be difficult. And that's what these characters do. And the wonderful thing is that they're there for each other. Like for Bernadette, a woman who is 50, who has never had a meaningful relationship. She moves to a small town. She meets a man who loves her without reservation or question. But he has a past.
Yes.
And his past comes up to kind of haunt them. And his past could very well send him to jail for the rest of his life and disrupt their happy life. And oh, by the way, she finds herself pregnant with her first child at the age of 50.
Yes.
Then you have her cousin, Tess, who's 40, who is an accomplished writer. She has just gotten over, really not fully over, a failed relationship.
Yeah.
And that word to people who have failed relationships, close the door before you try to move on. But at any rate,
yes.
So she tries to move on. She finds this wonderful man who loves her, but he wants a family. He wants to leave a legacy. And what she's not telling him is that she may not be able to have children at all. But she doesn't want to risk losing this man that
it's so real. How many people have those thoughts and conversations on a daily basis? I don't care if you're not Black. Everybody has these conversations. And when you just mentioned men, I encourage male men, if you're not a male reader per se, get the book, get the Audible, get the book in any way, shape, or form, because you've got Coop, Chris, and Maceo. These dudes who are attached to these women in different ways, they have stories of their own issues that they deal with, their own past, their own current issues. You've got an entrepreneur in there, you've got successful, you've got pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And you can identify with this, but I just love the fact that you brought everyday issues. That's drama in the book, because we all like to read other people's drama. But if we take a moment and we see how we ourselves have been blindsided, we can learn a lot of things from these characters. And I love the book club, because Trice, you have coming up in the month of December. Well, people can't get you now because you're all booked up, but Trice does private book club groups. So when you get blindsided, especially those of you that are going to do the contest that we talked about on our promo video, we have a contest about how you can get a free autographed copy of Blindsided from author, best-selling award-winning author, my high school classmate, and college roommate, Trice Hickman. You can get a free copy, an autograph copy, by going to Trice's website. Trice, tell them how they can do that again. How can they enter the contest?
Yes, so to enter the contest, you can go to my website, which is tricehickman.com, my first and last name, TriceHickman, tricehickman.com, and go to my book clubs tab. And there's a list. Book clubs are very dear to me, and that's why I have listed in pictures several book clubs on the website. So if you can name each one of those book clubs that have their pictures on the website, you're entered into the contest to win a autographed copy of Blindsided.
Yes. And so if you do that, and all you have to do after you do that is send an email to peace@blackwomensworld.com to be entered into the contest. And I will give you this book. This is the actual book. So look, so you don't think I'm tripping. I have two. I got yours and mine, the winner, and I have mine. Okay. So you will get this art because mine is autographed.
Special.
Mine is autographed. See, that's it, Tracy. Mine is, but I want you to get the book. I want you to get the book. I want you to use it as something to comfort you over the holidays. Give it away as a gift. Use it to even reach some places in your life that you may not feel comfortable talking about. You can see how the characters deal with it and what to do and what not to do, and give it as a gift. Because it is holiday time, Trice. This is recorded the week of Thanksgiving, but this will air probably the first week in December. So I want you to get.
But I have my holiday sweater on with my little holiday bear.
Let me see it again.
And my Christmas tree earrings.
See, and look, I'm telling y'all. I normally don't have this on, but because of the prior Zoom and my roomie, who is holiday every damn thing. I mean, her Thanksgiving tape, I have called her the Black Martha Stewart because I am total opposite. We're those kind of friends where you can be opposite and still get along. I might put up a tree and use it as Owen putting up the tree. And I might throw some. Really? Yes, I may throw some garland on the fireplace and whatever. But I'm a cook now. Now see, I'm gonna have those holiday meals.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You throw down.
But Trice, you do it so, it's so like magazine. The pictures you put up, I'm like, is this something that you want to do in addition to being an author and everything you do, your work, your creative genius? Is this something that you want to do because you're so good at it? Hell, I pay for you to come decorate for me.
Oh, thank you. You know, it is a passion of mine. And I think back to, I remember I was doing like this promo video years ago when I had written, I think it was maybe my second or third book. And one of the questions was asked, what would you do if you weren't writing, if you weren't a writer? And I said, I would be like Martha Stewart or B. Smith, or, I would be that person who is, a DIYer, home design guru. I'm a very domestic person. I love anything around the house and decorating the holidays. And so it is something that I want to explore more. I have a blog, Fabulous Southern Belle, that I started years ago and haven't really done a whole lot with at all. I'm going to overhaul Fabulous Southern Belle in 2022. I said I was going to do it in 2020. I said I was going to do it in 2021, but I have to do it now. I have no excuses. I've got to do it. And I'm going to write and blog and share the things that I love, all with the Southern flair, because I'm Southern at heart,
Yes, you are.
And
but
I am.
You use the D word, and that can seem like a bad word to progressive and innovative and forward thinking and moving women. Domestic. I don't mind the word at all.
I love it.
Because and I don't do the decor, but I like my house to feel a certain way. So I'm into the energy of things. So I like decor the way I like it. I place this here. It means something to me. It could be something very expensive or extremely cheap. It could be 50 cents. Things that people give me mean a lot. And I think things, I don't want to get woohoo spooky, but I think things have energy. So I just got finished decorating our back porch, and it's a perfect peace place for me. Every room in my home has to invoke peace and calm and fun and be able to hold a lot of laughter. And so I may not look at things like I'm an HGTV viewer. That's my TV's on that channel all day long. But at the same time, the way you do decor, it's influential because it's the care you put into it. It's forethought you have. So I'm over here with my spidey senses doing this spiritual stuff. Like, how does this mic feel? How does this particular, I picked this fan, it doesn't only, the hot flashes, but, the design of things, it has to feel a certain way to me. So that D word can be a good thing.
Oh, yeah. When people think of domestic, and especially if they think of domestic as a profession, like they think of it as something lowly,
Yeah.
But when you think about domestic and you think about being domesticated in home,
yes,
there is nothing more powerful, more enriching, more nurturing than home.
Yes.
And how you choose to make your home.
Yes.
And who you choose to share your home with.
Yes.
And so for me, I think that's one of the reasons, and like you said, the care that I put into, like, even something as simple as how I'm going to prepare a meal, or how I'm going to set my table. I want my family to be comfortable and to be happy. And I just like beautiful things too. And beauty is different to different people, and so, but I do want to share all these things with the world, really.
Yes.
And making your life beautiful, whatever that means for you, however you go about doing it. Because it's just so empowering.
It is, because what's on the inside flows from the outside. It's what goes on in your home shows up in your work. And that's why, I'm already an introvert, and I always tell people I like my house. So in order for me to come out,
beautiful home. You have a beautiful home.
But thank you for saying so. It just things that feel beautiful to me. I've got some pieces that I bought when we were in Japan that were very inexpensive, but it just what it does when I see it, how it feels in my hands. And I'm like that with people, and I am careful about who I let, not only in my physical house, but my house. But I just love the fact that you do those things, because it shows up your creativity, not only as the author of your 10th book, Blindsided, but in how even the style you have on now. I'm looking at the bookshelf behind you, the plants, everything you do, you put so much care. And that tender little voice of yours, I had to fix the levels before we started recording, and I hope Owen will fix them in editing, that won't have me all heavy and deep, and you way up here, Tracy, because you know how you roll.
Well, listen, you know what? It's so funny, because I have been purposely trying to speak louder and to have more, I guess, bass in my voice.
Okay, look. You might have gotten the louder right, but you ain't got no bass.
I did a podcast yesterday for for another show, and afterward I said, I listened to it. He sent me it was Sunday, I'm sorry. And I listened to it and I said, oh my gosh, I really thought I was putting some bass in it.
No, you ain't got no bass.
I sound like I'm 12.
And you know what? Friends giving to each other. You're trying to give me bass, and I'm trying to give you treble. I have been conscious because I know what it will sound like to those only listening by way of podcast, and I didn't want the contrast, so I'm trying to speak in a higher register because I'm with you.
I knew something special was gonna happen because I'm still wearing my SistaNista band.
Yes. See, you know what? See, look at friends. You promote. I ain't got on SistaNista nothing right now. Nothing. And nothing.
Black Women's World Podcast.
Got on my shirt, and you thank you, Rumi, for coming through. See what friends do for each other. I got your book, you got my band, you on my podcast. We're gonna make this thing work. But listen, SistaNista lovers, Trice, I don't even know how we're gonna edit this because we into an hour and a half. We choose to try not to go this long, but anything you want to say in reference to the book, anything. Blindsided, Trice Hickman, what you want to say, baby?
You know what, and what I want to say is it's going to take too long, and it's not going to, it'll end up making us go over and talk about a whole nother subject. But one of the things that I did want to just briefly touch on before we end the show about the book is the character Arizona and the real situation that she faces in her marriage of sexual dysfunction. There are so many women who suffer with sexual dysfunction in their relationship and being sexually unfulfilled. And what I want to say to those women listening is that you deserve to be pleased. You deserve satisfaction, whether you have to get it yourself or because it ties in, good sexual health ties in with our overall physical health. Yes. So I want to encourage women who are listening to empower themselves in that area. Absolutely. And, and if you're in a relationship that is suffering with sexual dysfunction, there are ways to remedy it if you're both committed to improving that area of your life. So get committed to doing it and don't just go through the motions in silence. So that is what I wanted to say.
But I'm so glad you brought that up because I didn't know how much of the book to tell. I didn't want to give away the juice. But Trice, that is so real because no matter what age, because I'm talked to a lot of, well, not a lot, but millennials and zennials who I consider mentees because they consider me to be their mentor. And some of these young girls are really into quantity. They have a term they use called body count. When I first heard it, I thought it meant dead bodies, but that's sexual partners.
Wait, what? What is
body
it?
count? A term they use called body count.
Oh. And
so when they're talking about body count, for those of us who are Generation X or older or baby boomers, millennials, some later millennials and zennials, when they talk about body count, they're not talking about dead bodies. They're talking about sexual partners. And a lot of these young girls pride themselves on the quantity of sexual partners. Now, back in the day, we were like, no, we don't want to be called no hoe. And they don't want to be called no hoe either. But it was like, if you were too promiscuous back in the day, that was a bad thing. So when I'm talking to them about their sexuality, they're talking about body count, heat is it, and don't have a clue what an orgasm is or what it feels like. And they're leading themselves into being in these long-term sexually dysfunctional relationships because they're out to prove a point. And I'm not quite sure. I don't have my finger on the pulse of what that point is. It may just be attention from men. But these guys out there getting off and these young girls out there laid up with them and don't know what to feel, how to feel, or nothing. So even, Arizona's issue in the book, being able to talk about it, because we think talking about sex cheapens you in some kind of way. But let me tell you, you better talk about it and talk about how good it is.
Say that again.
You want to talk about it and talk about how good it is. Especially as married women. I'm coming up on 28 years of marriage. And I'm a church girl. And I still love the Lord, ordained in ministry. But let me tell you something. After 28 years, if me and Owen McNeil don't have a groovy good thing sexually, we would not have been together. I couldn't have stayed with him and he could have stayed with me. Now, you have to be honest in life and in longevity of marriage, your sexual relationship changes. Your desires change, your frequency changes. But you better have that bedrock of knowing how to please each other. And if I can't tell you who, I ain't got all the answers. And we even
Absolutely
continue to seek help and hope and because you have to. You can't take it for granted. My parents were married for 48 years and got divorced. You think I'm gonna take 28 years for granted? And not know how I need to be pleased and know how to please that man? Yeah. Girl.
Let me tell you, and that is so true. It's so true. And it's a way that partners, you connect with your significant other in that way. And it brings you even closer together. When sex is good, it's only 10% in the relationship. When it is bad, it is 90%.
Yes.
You know, and so you have, if you're committed to that relationship and you want to, because if you're not fulfilled, if you're sexually unfulfilled, other things are going to bother you that wouldn't normally bother you.
Yes.
So it creates that 90%.
Yes.
So you better figure out, what can I do to change this? What can I do? And that's where your compromise comes in. That's where your honesty comes in. And that's where being mature and kind of figuring out what's going to work for us.
Because you know, Trice, that you know, the old cliche, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Okay. The way to a man's mind. I'm gonna let y'all fill in the blank. And it's not to control his mind, but if you want to be on his mind and have him on yours, then there's some sexual prowess you have to develop. I think I need to cut it off right there. But
But it's so true. It is so true. And that's one of the things that my husband says, Tess says, we got to keep it fresh. You know, keep it fresh. And whatever that is for different people, you know, as long as you're two consenting adults that agree.
Yes.
But that was a big part of this book in dealing with sexual dysfunction, because so many times we don't talk about it. And in particular with Black men in general, you know, their egos surrounding sex just are different.
Yeah, and we don't help as women if we pretend to be pleased.
Oh,
it's not helping that you don't need to emasculate him or destroy his ego. But at the same time, if you pretend to be pleased, you're exacerbating the problem that he may need to confront and deal with. You know, and I appreciate, you know, because we talked about us, you know, earlier, you know, being blindsided by different things, blindsided by rejection, blindsided by divorce, you can be blindsided by sexual dysfunction. So Trice Hickman, author extraordinaire, my roomie, my sister friend, I love you. I appreciate you for coming to sit in the BWWP VIP seat for the second time, but the first time on videocast. And I think you did your mama proud, and your daddy. Rest in peace, Reverend Hickman. And I know the holidays may be a little difficult, especially after your brother passed. But I appreciate you for letting me know some days you're okay, some days you're not, and allowing me to be vulnerable to share those days with you, when some days I'm okay and some days I'm not. So thank you for being here, my friend. And you all go get your copy of Blindsided by Trice Hickman and go ahead and enter the contest so you can get this autographed copy I got sitting for you right here. So much love and peace. Enjoy your holidays, as this will probably be the last episode for Black Women's World for the year 2021, because I'm taking 3 weeks off, and I get to. But you have plenty of episodes you can go back to and listen to from season 1 and season 2. And we'll be moving into season 3, January 2022. So much love and peace to all of you listening from all over the world. I'm TracyMac.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there, and I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.